Hello, if you found this video, it's probably because you want to make a zine, or perhaps you are in the process of making a zine of your own and are just feeling a little bit lost and confused with the creative process, which is something I have experienced. So, regardless of where you are in your zine journey, you have come to the right place because while I'm not an expert in zines, I do have quite a bit of experience having had my writing printed in other local zines and also having created my own solo zine last fall, and I've learned so much about it from both being featured and being the sole entity and energy behind it. Hi, I'm Noelle. I'm a multi-hyphenate living in Los Angeles, California. For the parts of my many careers that relate most to this video is that I am a poet and a screenwriter. As a poet, I have already one book of poetry out in this world. I have a copy here. Haha, I'm prepared. Notes from the In-Between. It's my debut poetry collection. It came out, I don't even remember when. And my second book of poetry comes out fall of 2026, which is very exciting. And in between that, I also created my own solo zine. I made this zine last fall. Well, I started it in the summer and it was released last fall. While I was drowning in screenwriting work and just really loving but feeling very overwhelmed by the collaborative process of rewriting a script. And what I mean by overwhelmed is when you are working on a collaborative project, and through the process, there is this deep need to show up and kind of do all these things. You know, you're getting producer notes, director notes, in my case, even a couple of very small but very influential and important notes from the cinematographer, and then you're just kind of like doing all these things and you're trying to put it all together. And in the process, you just realize how much you need an outlet and something that's just your own and that can be more vibe-based. And I don't know, I just wanted to make something messy. Like truly that was my goal, was to make something that was 100% me, that was messy, that wasn't clean and polished and long and very meticulous the way I try to make my poetry collections. And in the same way with the scripts, it wasn't something that, you know, there's gonna be a lot of other cooks in the kitchen. And I think for me that's very healthy. Making things like this zine make me, I think, very available to collaboration and prevent me creatively from getting in my own way or upholding other people's fantastic contributions to a project. So making this zine, I was already a little bit familiar with the process because I've been so lucky to have my poems featured in other zines, specifically zines made by my amazing friends Sofia and Paula. I've linked all their stuff down below. Almost every zine that I have contributed to with them has also been a fundraiser, which I absolutely love. So if there are any of their zines previously still available, they just do amazing work, and I love how they truly use art to uplift the community, and I recommend checking that out because it's very true to the origins of zines, which again, I think helped me make my zine really nice. And for more information on the history and origins of zines, there are some wonderful in-depth videos that I have linked down below by other amazing YouTube creators. But roughly the energy and things around zines that I have known, that I look at, is kind of like my personal foray into the history of it, which again feeds into the intentionality and the tips and tricks that I will be sharing in this video. Is zines have always been hyper local, very small, very intentional, and they have been always a much more experimental, more current form of art. Zine, very similar to magazine. It's always been just like printing and having, you know, there are electronic ones, but the ones I always think of have been the physical ones that you can hold. They're not very, you know, big, and it packs a punch. It says and showcases a lot of things that would otherwise perhaps be censored, or things that would get overlooked by larger publications. And it's always been a place for artistic freedom and kind of for pushing local culture forward, which I really love about it. There's always been something very like punk and it girl to a zine. And in Los Angeles, zines are very popular, specifically amongst artists And comic book artists, though, obviously through people like Sofia and Paula, we have wonderful examples of the very, very ripe and fresh poetry version of this in LA. And photographers also dabble in it quite a lot. My friend John Del Rell has made some amazing little zines of his own, highlighting his photography work, though I don't think any of those are currently available online. And I think those have only been sold just through events or his gallery opening. But there they go. But yeah, if you've been to LA or you live in Los Angeles, there are many bookstores or stores that are pretty much zine only shops, which I love. Some of them function on a consignment basis, other of them focus on kind of like a co-op publishing route. It's really fantastic. So that was very much my exposure to zines, and I feel like truthfully a lot of my friends started to get into zines when there was that like years long lull between like Tumblr, which none of us were truly like deep into peak Tumblr, but some of us got on a little young and caught like the tail end of it. And then there was this big gap of when Tumblr was not doing anything. And then slowly, like that same group of us, the same group of us that like longed for peak Tumblr, all kind of found zines and became exciting and fresh and rebellious because it was something that was in person. Like it was local, it is current to our city. And like you really have to know someone to know about their zine, or be like, again, very involved in like the music scene or the art gallery scene or those type of things to get your hands on one. And then obviously with COVID happening, zines kind of went into a weird lull for us because there just kind of wasn't that art market IRL element anymore. And what I think has been really cool is since COVID has come and gone, well, not literally, but the lockdown and peak isolation of the epidemic has passed, we see this really amazing kind of fusion where zines are now being made accessible online and they're being mailed more, but they haven't lost that like deeply local bite and edge. And that's something that I want to talk to you about, and how to really get the most out of your zine. So the first and most important thing that I have learned through reading so many amazing zines and getting to really truthfully learn from people like Paula and Sofia what their vision and how they edit and put zines together and the things that they pick from submissions is that, you know, a zine can really do anything and talk about anything, but because it's small, you need to make every single thing count. You really need to focus on the specific vision and tone and focus. So one of the poems that I wrote for a previous thing for Paula and Sofia was, I think the first one was just for Paula. And for Paula, the poem that I submitted, it's actually one that's going to be featured in my new book, Valley Girl Manifesto, but the poem was all about seeing the economic collapse of Los Angeles following the strikes, the union strikes in 2023. And that was a zine where the theme for it was like summertime. And so I was writing about the contrast between the two summers. And that was very interesting to write and very fun, but it was very much contrasted by poems about going to the beach and all these different things, and that variety, but again, a hyper local focus and talking about topics that may otherwise be overlooked, like topics of where nostalgia and economics merge, was really cool to like see. And I really appreciate that the poem was able to be featured and that there was the ability to highlight it and keep it on theme through the arrangement of other poems. Another poem that I wrote for Sofia and Paula, one of their joint ventures, was after the LA fires. I wrote a poem that was all about the music that was playing on my playlist as I was like coping with what felt like the apocalypse in my city. And so those are, again, two very focused versions of what can really be explored in zines and how you can really take the theme, right? Just like odes to Los Angeles and the fires, and then summertime, and really keep it specific and focused. And something really cool that a lot of what Sofia and Paula do is they'll include a lot of poems that are in foreign languages. Especially with Sofia, there'll be a lot of stuff that merges Spanish and English, or be all in Spanish. And so it really allows you to embrace the hidden and overlooked elements of life as lived by like the actual people in a location. Other great zines that I have seen snippets online may not even be super based in local experiences. There are so many diverse people who make incredible zines focusing on the shared universal experiences of queerness or disability, or experiences of just overall suppression in the system, and being someone who is heavily othered for multiple reasons, and building entire zines around the various takes on that. And again, it's allowed to be more raw, less polished. You can make comic book zines. Comic book zines are so popular. You can merge poetry and art together. There's honestly endless limits. No, that's not right. There are endless possibilities and very little limits with zines, except for the length. And that's why I think being hyper specific with your theme is the best option. And that's truthfully what this whole segment was meant to get to, is being really specific with your theme. Using my solo zine as an example, Dial Love for Loneliness. I wanted to take on modern dating culture, and I wanted to do it in a way that was reflective of specifically that Tumblr void that it felt like Angelinos were diving into with zines. And so, you know, I really wanted to explore the ups and downs of modern dating. And really, there's like, of course, the first poem I look at, it's like, that's going to be a censored word. But, you know, I wanted to write a poem about like a one-night stand. I'm looking at somebody's shoulders, except the one-night stand is not a one-night stand anymore. So what are you going to do about that? You know, and just first love. Oh my gosh, I forgot about a poem about first love. You know, and also exploring bisexuality was a big thing I wanted to explore in this. I wanted to be able to write about the muddiness of that and the ups and downs. And the other thing that I really liked about this is one where I challenged myself to write also outside of my own experiences, and to really just write the poems that sat on my chest, even if they weren't truly autobiographical. And so I think that those are kind of the defining perimeters, is like, are you writing from your own lived experience? Are you merging lived experiences? Are you exploring topics, characters? What is your goal? Who do you want to read this? What's all of that? And I think the more specific you get, the better, because zines are all about being specific. And in a really crazy way, I think the best part of zines is you can make it entirely for yourself, and it's okay. It's not a book. You know, it's its own artistic expression. It's kind of rebellious. It's got a more punk energy to it, which is where you can say, like, I'm making this to say, like, all this, right? And I think everybody should try making a zine, or at least come up with an idea of a zine that they want to make in their life. I think that even if you're someone who would say, I'm not creative at all, the process of doing that is going to always reveal a lot about what's personally weighing on you, and perhaps what type of zines you want to read, even if you don't want to make it yourself. That creative exploration and conversation with self is always going to be fruitful. And I'm also someone who's a big believer in trying and failing. You know, my zine is not what I would consider to be a financial success, but granted, I didn't make it to be a financial success. I made it to create something for the sake of creating it, and I wanted to make something that sat so separate out of everything that I have done. Very similar to even the creation of Notes from the In-Between. Notes from the In-Between was something I wanted to maintain my artistic and creative expression. And designing this cover, like all of these, I did digital art as on my own, and then laid it on top of and woven in with collage images that I grabbed. But this whole telephone, all of the telephones I painted, like digitally. They're digital paints, but I wanted to do all of that, and it's full of imperfections. And very similar with Notes from the In-Between, like the cover is all me. because I wanted to really, really dive into my artistic abilities. Because as a screenwriter, I don't always get that choice. They're gonna look at me and tell me that the scene that I love is, you know, $50,000 over budget. And there's no way to film it for less money. And so you have to not film it. And you have to adapt the story around it, which I also love. I also love the challenge. But I think everybody should think about making a zine because it is truly, truly fantastic. Now, how do you make a zine? Great question. There are many ways to go about it. I know a lot of people use Procreate. You can use Procreate. You can use Photoshop. I personally used Canva. Now, I did use all of this, as it says here, back before Canva had heavily integrated AI. So this is 100% AI free. I'm not someone who uses AI for I mean, I guess since I use Gmail and I'm uploading to YouTube, there is some AI against my will ingrained in all of that. Like, I think if people turn captions on, AI is there. Granted, I'm not opposed to AI providing captions if it didn't have negative damages to resources on the environment, because I'm big on accessibility. But I don't think I can turn that feature off on captions. But this sweet bad boy was made AI free. There's not a single bit of AI anywhere in it. And it is completely possible to do that using programs like Procreate. You would be amazed at your options and flexibilities of what you can do in Procreate. And honestly, you don't even have to get that fancy with it. You can truly, truly create a Word doc, you know, to make this. I would say Google Doc, but Google Doc is now completely AI. So you can still use Word, you can still use Pages if you're an Apple user, though Pages has a lot of faults. I would bet you could use Scrivener for this as well. But I used Canva. There are a bunch of zine templates already on Canva, and then I just modified and adapted it how I wanted, and I just used it so that I could put in a couple of things. Also, this is an uncorrected proof that I'm holding because I wanted to be able to beat it up in the video. So I wanted to be able to add those elements because to me, I wanted to keep some of the like the ode to magazines within it. So Canva, and then important for the making it, I used a website called Mixum to print all of it. I absolutely loved working with Mixum. It was a little slow with shipping, like printing and shipping. So definitely don't do the thing where you give yourself like a really crazy deadline and wait till the last minute and then do this. Because you will inevitably have to email anyone who pre-ordered it being like, hey, sorry, took longer than I thought. So definitely give Mixum a fair chance to actually print and ship your goods. How to sell your zine? Well, if you have tons of money, you don't have to sell your zine. Alternatively, if you don't want to print at the same level as Mixum, like I wanted full color because I really fell in love with my color cover. If you want to do something small and black and white, a lot of people I know print at Staples and then they fold their zine together and staple it themselves. And they do that so that they can give the zines away for free, just like to strangers on the street, which I love. I do not know how to do that, which is why I did this. But I think eventually I would love to learn how to make the little classic fold it, staple it zines and just be able to willy-nilly give someone just a little poetry book to make their day. Or something really fun that I used to do with a friend of mine's zine is I would go around and I would hide it in books, places. And randomly my friend would get like DMs and photos being like, I found your zine in this place, like, and here's why. That was miraculous. And today was the perfect day for me to find this. So eventually I want to hide and make those little black and white staples zines that are stapled So Staples, the store is where you print and then you staple it. Though you can also perhaps print at your local library. I know the Los Angeles Public Library lets you print X amount at a time for free. So if you're really balling on a budget, Los Angeles Public Library if you're in LA. If you are not balling on a budget and you want something small and like nice, like I did, you can use Mixum. And then for me, I sell this on my author website, but there are many, many people who sell their zines on Etsy. And there are many other people who make zines just to sell at local art markets or fairs, or just sell them through their Instagram stories. All of the above are fantastic, but there are also some incredible zine-only stores all throughout America. You can Google them, or if you are in Los Angeles, there is an amazing store called the Pop Hop for people who are at the book launch for Notes from the In-Between. You know, the Pop Hop is where I had my book launch. I love so much of what the Pop Hop stands for, but they are a consignment store and they sell all kinds of zines on consignment, and they do a lot to support true artists who are creating art for the sake of art, or for the sake of community, which is also really incredible. So there's a lot of stores like the Pop Pop. I don't know if they accept zines from like out of state, but honestly, send them an email, let them take a look at what you've got, because they are absolutely amazing. Another great thing that you can do is also host a zine making night, because some people love to make zines in person, and you can always do a zine exchange, which, you know, you're not making profit on that, but you are getting a zine for a zine. So pitching your zine to sell, a couple of tips for the email is going to be listing what makes it special, why you care, what makes it special. Great question. That's gonna make everybody kind of like go, what? For me, I would focus very much on what is the topic? Why am I saying something different from anybody else about love? And why might a reader want to pick this up over a different zine in the store about love? And so I mentioned the fact that this is a zine that is about the kind of nostalgia of reading anonymous Tumblr posts from people who are going through something similar but different, and the way that Tumblr felt like a cultural mirror of a very personal experience. And it felt like you were reading something alone at 2 a.m. and a stranger bared their soul to your bare soul, but you would never know them and you didn't want to know them. So I wanted to keep that kind of like universal anonymity, and also talked about the fact that I really, really wanted it to highlight what it is like to be doing the modern online dating scheme, and why that feels so vapid and feels so hollow and shallow, contrasted with kind of that Tumblr-esque feeling. Did I achieve that in this zine? It is going to be up to each and every reader, but that is the goal of the zine, and the kind of like why it's special is the fact that it's meant to highlight and show the contrast and contradiction of these things through each reader, and which poems stand out. And it definitely is a different type of poem that I'm writing. It is much more contemporary poetry style than I normally write, and in that it felt very like risque for me. And that is something else that I highlighted. You know, and I also had the ability to highlight, like, I have a whole book of poetry. This is just like a little side thing. It feels almost like this is me doing what KJ Apa has done with his strange man persona. Like I have my this, which is my normal me, and then I've got my this, which is the strange personified me in poetry. So that's my zine, if you will. You make a lot of mistakes with your zine, which is one, setting really high expectations for it to be something that it's not. I think with a zine, it's just being really realistic about the fact that it is. Like, honestly, that's what it is. Yes, you want it to be good, you want it to be the best, but again, you kind of have to just let it show you what it wants to be and just go. The other thing is maybe don't announce your zine until, until after you have it proofed and corrected and have figured out how long it takes you to either manually build it yourself or how to put it out in the world. Other mistakes with zines is I ordered a lot and I did not sell a lot. I have not sold a lot. I do expect that I will sell more when my new book comes out, because I think people will probably bundle it for gifts. If they already have notes from the in-between and they're getting Valley Girl Manifesto, they might add this on. It also might be something that does better for me to sell as a special, unique thing at book signings. This is a limited run zine. I only printed 150. I really don't think, unless it is truly and deeply beloved, which, since it's not ISBN on Goodreads, any of that, I don't really get reviews for this. I don't think there's any way for me to know if it's truly and deeply beloved. If it's truly and deeply beloved, perhaps I will do a second printing of it. But for right now, it's limited, and that's part of the fun, is like, you get it, you get it, you have it, you have it. But the mistakes that I would make is, I definitely think if I was to do this again, I would print a lot less and I would be a lot less precious about it. It would be something that I give away to people. It would be something that I just really do even more for the sake of art. When I printed this, I was not financially in the position to just completely eat the cost on it. Because it was not, when you put everything all together, it's not necessarily cheap or free. It is fair if you are selling your zine, and that's like the difference. So the mistake I made is not giving myself enough time to really execute it well and execute it on time, because I also was doing this again while I was getting about 3 hours of sleep a night because I was working on a screenplay. But I honestly don't think I would have been able to work on the screenplay or do what I did had I not had this. So on the whole, if you're thinking about making a zine, you absolutely should. You should at least try. And if you never finish it, you never finish it. And if you do finish it and you only print out one copy for yourself, that's really cool. There is so much to be said for making something just to make it. And I think we so rarely allow ourselves that time. And sometimes that act of just creating to create is the cure for burnout. It's the solution to feeling like you're stuck in a trap of the same kind of Groundhog Day life. Sometimes it's the perfect outlet when you are angry or grieving or truly any multitude of feelings. You can get hyper specific in a zine, and the type of people who like zines and the type of people who are going to be called to it are going to understand the core of what you're saying and doing. It's not very influencer, it's not very, commodified. It's very removed from the deep throes of capitalism, and so in that there's more freedom for that human flaw and those mistakes. And that's why I'm really proud that I did it without AI. Granted, I don't use AI on anything, but I do think that especially with zines, it's a place to really let your humanity be sharp and cutting and biting, and it can be raw, it can be soft, but again, we tend to get kind of more the sting of it, and we don't have to shy away from that, and we can really learn so much more about the people who are around us. And also, if you're interested in making a zine, there are so many amazing online communities for this. I also, throwing it out there, think that it is always an exciting thing to pitch to local libraries, to pitch to all these things. I know Sofia and Paula have hosted zine making events where they walk everybody through this in more detail with more expertise and let people take a crack at different ways of formulating it. It's just an option to, I think, step out of your comfort zone in a really fun and exciting way that also perhaps doesn't feel as like life-threatening to the little perfectionist that lives inside all of us. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you are in the process of making a zine or have any additional thoughts, notes, anything, honestly, I love reading the comments, especially about things like this. So let me know. And then if you are interested in my zine or in Notes from the In-Between, they, along with my new book, which is available for pre-order, are all available on my website, which is linked below and in my bio. And then Notes from the In-Between, because it is a book, is available wherever books are sold online and multiple bookstores all across America. And it is also available internationally through Blackwell. And there are a couple of international Amazons that also, I think, still have copies of it. So anyway, that is me. And with that, happy writing.